Imagine two friends who start life in the same city with the same salary, the same opportunities, and the same dreams about the future. 20 years later, one feels calm about money and has strong savings. The other feels constant stress. Same income, different results. What created the gap between their financial lives today exactly? Most people assume the difference must be luck, talent, or some secret investment strategy. Maybe one of them bought cryptocurrency early or inherited money. But what if the truth is much simpler than that? What if the real difference came from a few quiet habits repeated every single year? This idea can feel surprising because modern financial advice often sounds complex. You hear about trading strategies, market timing, special apps, and endless investment tricks. But when researchers study people who build long-term financial stability, they usually discover something much simpler: clear rules followed consistently for many years. These rules are not exciting. They do not promise overnight wealth. In fact, many people ignore them because they sound almost too obvious to matter. But that is exactly why they work. Simple rules are easier to repeat every day, and repetition is what slowly builds real financial strength. Today, we are going to explore minimalist money rules. Minimalist does not mean living a miserable life or denying yourself every comfort. Instead, it means removing confusion so the important choices become clear. When money rules become simple, you spend less time worrying and more time building freedom. Think about it this way. If you try to follow 20 different financial strategies at once, you'll probably follow none of them well. But if you follow 5 powerful rules for 20 years, the results can completely transform your life. Small, consistent actions create surprisingly large outcomes. The first rule may sound familiar, but it remains the foundation of everything else. Spend less than you earn. No exceptions. This rule sounds basic, yet millions of people struggle with it every year. Why? Because income increases often lead to lifestyle increases instead of savings. Imagine someone receives a raise at work. Suddenly, the monthly income is higher, which feels great. But instead of saving that extra money, they upgrade their apartment, buy a more expensive car, and start spending more on daily habits. Within months, the extra income disappears. This pattern is called lifestyle inflation. Every time income rises, spending quietly rises as well. On the surface, nothing seems wrong. Life even feels better for a while. But years later, the person wonders why higher income never created real financial security. Now, compare that with someone who handles raises differently. When their salary increases, they keep most of their lifestyle the same. Instead, they increase savings and investments. Over time, the gap between income and spending grows larger, and that gap becomes the engine of wealth. Think about that carefully for a moment. Wealth is not created by income alone. It is created by the difference between what you earn and what you spend. Two people can earn the same salary, but the one who protects that gap will slowly build financial strength. Here's something interesting researchers discovered when studying lottery winners and professional athletes. Many people who suddenly receive huge amounts of money still lose everything within a few years. The problem was never the amount of money. The problem was spending behavior. When spending grows faster than income, even large fortunes can disappear surprisingly quickly. But when spending stays controlled, even average salaries can create financial stability. That's why the first rule matters so much. If this rule breaks, every other financial strategy collapses. The second rule is equally powerful but less obvious. Never allow money to sit idle for too long. Every dollar you own should have a purpose. Money that sits without earning anything slowly loses value because prices rise over time through inflation. Imagine leaving $10,000 in a basic bank account that earns almost no interest. At first, nothing feels wrong, the balance stays the same. But each year, the purchasing power slowly shrinks because everyday goods become more expensive. Now, imagine that same money placed in an account earning solid interest or invested in diversified funds. Instead of shrinking quietly, the money begins to grow. Over many years, that growth becomes powerful because of something called compound interest. Compounding simply means your money begins to earn money, and then that new money also starts earning more money. It's like planting a tree that produces seeds, and each seed grows into another tree. Over time, the forest expands without constant effort. Many people think investing requires complex knowledge or constant trading, but history shows that simple, diversified investments often outperform complicated strategies. Even famous investors regularly recommend broad market index funds for long-term growth because they are simple and effective. The key idea is this: saved money should always be working somewhere productive. Some of it protects you in safe accounts, and some of it grows through investments. But doing nothing with your savings allows inflation to slowly reduce its real value. The third rule focuses on protection rather than growth. Before chasing investment returns, build a financial safety buffer. Life is unpredictable. Cars break down, jobs change, and unexpected bills appear when you least expect them. Imagine someone living paycheck to paycheck who suddenly faces a medical bill or urgent home repair. Without savings, the only option may be a high-interest credit card. That single emergency can create months or even years of financial pressure. Now, picture someone else who prepared differently. They built an emergency fund covering several months of living expenses. When the same problem appears, they simply pay the cost using their savings and continue moving forward without panic. This safety buffer is sometimes called a financial moat, like the protective water surrounding ancient castles. The moat does not attack enemies, it simply prevents danger from reaching the castle walls. Your emergency fund works exactly the same way. When you have this protection, your financial decisions become calmer and smarter. You don't panic during temporary problems. You don't rush into bad loans. Instead, you respond to challenges with confidence because you know your foundation is secure. The fourth rule targets one of the biggest obstacles to financial freedom: high-interest debt. Debt may appear harmless at first, especially when monthly payments seem small, but interest quietly grows over time, turning small balances into heavy financial burdens. Consider a credit card charging very high interest. If someone carries a balance month after month, a large portion of their payment goes only toward interest rather than reducing the original debt. This means progress becomes painfully slow. Think of debt as a claim on your future work. Every dollar owed represents hours you must work later to repay decisions made earlier. That future effort belongs to someone else until the debt disappears. Not every type of debt is automatically harmful. Education loans or home loans can sometimes support long-term growth. But consumer debt used for everyday spending often traps people in cycles of interest payments. The minimalist rule here is simple but powerful. Eliminate high-interest debt aggressively. Instead of slowly paying minimum amounts, focus energy on clearing balances as quickly as possible. Every debt removed increases your financial breathing room. Imagine finishing your final debt payment. Suddenly, the money that once went to lenders becomes available for savings and investing. That moment can feel like receiving a permanent raise without changing jobs. The fifth rule is more psychological than mathematical, yet it may be the most important of all. Define what enough means for your life. Without this definition, financial goals constantly move farther away. Modern culture often encourages endless comparison. Someone always owns a bigger house, a newer phone, or a more luxurious car. When people chase these comparisons constantly, satisfaction disappears even when income grows significantly. But people who reach lasting financial stability usually make a different decision. They determine what level of comfort truly supports their values, relationships, and happiness. Once they reach that level, they stop endlessly raising the target. This mindset creates surprising peace. Instead of chasing every upgrade society promotes, they focus on meaningful experiences, relationships, and personal growth. Money becomes a supportive tool rather than a constant source of pressure. Think again about the two individuals we imagined at the beginning of this story. They lived in the same environment and earned similar incomes, yet one followed a handful of consistent principles while the other waited for perfect opportunities. Over time, those small decisions accumulated. Spending slightly less each month created savings. Savings invested regularly created growth. Protection against emergencies prevented setbacks. Debt disappeared gradually, and the definition of enough prevented endless lifestyle expansion. None of these steps created instant wealth. There was no dramatic breakthrough moment or magical investment. Instead, steady discipline quietly shaped the outcome year after year. Many people underestimate the power of long timelines. 10 years of small improvements can transform financial stability. 20 years can create real independence. 30 years can completely change a family's financial future. Imagine planting a tree today. Tomorrow it looks exactly the same. Next year it seems only slightly larger, but after many years, the tree becomes tall, strong, and capable of producing fruit season after season. Personal finance works the same way. Daily actions often feel small and insignificant, but when those actions repeat for decades, they become powerful forces shaping your future lifestyle. This is why simple rules outperform complicated plans. Complicated systems require constant attention and motivation. Simple rules become habits that operate almost automatically once established. For example, automatic savings transfers can move money into investment accounts every month. After a while, you barely notice the process happening, yet your financial foundation keeps growing quietly in the background. Another helpful habit is reviewing expenses regularly, not to punish yourself, but to stay aware. Awareness alone often reduces unnecessary spending because you begin recognizing patterns you previously ignored. Many people discover surprising spending habits during these reviews. Small daily purchases seem harmless individually, but together they form significant monthly costs that could have been redirected toward long-term goals. When you redirect even a portion of those expenses into investments, time begins working for you instead of against you. The earlier this process starts, the more powerful compounding becomes. But here is an important reminder. Financial improvement does not require perfection. Everyone makes mistakes, unexpected expenses occur, and plans change. What matters most is returning to the core rules consistently. Each time you follow those rules, you strengthen your financial position. Each time you ignore them temporarily, you learn something useful about your habits and priorities. Over years, these lessons refine your decisions. Spending becomes more intentional. Saving becomes automatic. Investing becomes routine rather than intimidating. Eventually, you reach a point where money stress decreases dramatically. Bills are manageable, savings exist for emergencies, and investments grow steadily in the background. At that stage, money stops dominating your daily thoughts. Instead, it becomes a quiet support system allowing you to focus on family, creativity, health, and meaningful work. And that is the true goal of financial stability. Not luxury for the sake of appearance, but freedom from constant financial pressure. Freedom to make choices based on values rather than desperation. So remember the 5 minimalist rules that quietly shape strong financial lives. Spend less than you earn, keep every dollar working, build a protective emergency fund, eliminate high-interest debt, and decide what enough means for your life. None of these rules promise instant wealth, but together they create something more valuable, long-term control over your financial future. Imagine looking back 10 or 20 years from now and realizing the small habits you started today completely changed your life trajectory. That moment begins with simple decisions repeated consistently. The journey toward financial stability rarely begins with a dramatic breakthrough. It begins with a quiet choice to follow simple rules today, tomorrow, and the next day until those actions shape a future filled with freedom, security, and peace of mind.